My name's Daniel, and I am telling you this story because someone needs to know the truth about what's out there. It was October when my friends and I decided to go camping. There were 4 of us: me, my girlfriend Rachel, my college roommate Marcus, and his younger brother Tyler, who had just turned 18 and wanted to prove he wasn't afraid of anything. Marcus had heard about Millbrook Ridge from a guy at work. Sold it was the most isolated camping spot in the entire Northeast. No crowds, no rangers, no rules, just miles of untouched forest and the kind of silence you can't find anywhere else. We should have asked why it was so empty. The drive took longer than expected. By the time we found the unmarked dirt road that led into the forest, the sun had already begun to set. The trees grew thick on either side, their branches reaching over the road like fingers trying to touch. "This is perfect," Marcus said, grinning in the rearview mirror. Total isolation. Rachel squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything, but I could feel her unease. The forest here was different somehow. The trees were older, twisted in ways that seemed almost deliberate, and there was this smell faint at first, like rotting leaves and something else underneath. Something metallic. We drove for another 20 minutes before finding a clearing. It was almost too perfect. A flat circle of grass surrounded by towering pines, with a fire pit already dug into the center. Someone had camped here before. "See?" Tyler said, jumping out of the truck. "People come here all the time." But as I looked closer at the fire pit, I noticed the stones arranged around it weren't random. They formed a paranoia spiral that curved inward toward the center. And the ash inside was old, years old, maybe decades. We set up our tents anyway. What else were we going to do? Drive back in the dark on roads we barely knew. The first few hours were normal enough. We built a fire, roasted hot dogs, told stupid jokes. Marcus brought a bottle of whiskey, and we passed it around while the stars came out above us. For a little while, I forgot about the twisted trees and the spiral stones. Then Tyler noticed the silence. "Do you hear that?" he asked. We all stopped talking and listened. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No crickets, no owls, no wind in the branches, just the crackle of our fire and the sound of our own breathing. "That's weird," Rachel whispered. "There should be something." Marcus laughed, nervously. "Animals are probably just scared of us. We're making too much noise." But I'd been camping my whole life, and I'd never experienced silence like this. It felt heavy, like the forest was holding its breath. We went to bed early that night. Rachel and I shared one tent. Marcus and Tyler took the other. I zipped our tent, closed, and tried to convince myself everything was fine. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. The fire had died to embers, and the clearing was bathed in pale moonlight. Rachel was still asleep beside me, her breathing slow and steady. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling our tent. I lay perfectly still, my heart pounding so hard I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. The footsteps continued: crunch, 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 moving around us in a wide arc. And then they stopped, right outside our tent. I held my breath. Through the thin fabric, I could see a shadow, tall. Impossibly tall. It stood there for what felt like hours, not moving, not making a sound. Then, slowly, it leaned down. I could see the outline of a head wrong somehow. Too long, with shapes where ears should be that curved upward like branches. It pressed against the tent fabric, and I swear I could feel its breath, cold and damp, seeping through. Rachel stirred beside me. The shadow pulled back instantly and was gone. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, I told the others what I'd seen. Tyler laughed and called me. Marcus said I'd probably dreamed it, but Rachel believed me. She'd felt something too, she admitted. Presence. A weight pressing down on her chest while she slept. We should have left then, but Tyler was determined to stay, and Marcus didn't want to disappoint his brother, so we compromised. One more night, then we'd leave first thing in the morning. That day, we explored the forest around the clearing. About half a mile in, we found something that made my blood run cold. Trees, dozens of them, arranged in a perfect circle, and carved into each trunk was a name. Sarah Millbrook, 1923, Thomas Arding, 1941, the Carver family, -1986, there were more. So, many more. The oldest carvings were weathered and faded, barely legible. The newest ones were fresh, the wood still pale where the bark had been stripped away. "What is this?" Rachel asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I counted the trees." 47 names. 47 people. At the center of the circle was a hollow-eyed depression in the earth, about 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, the exact dimensions of a grave. But it was empty. "We need to leave," I said. "Right now?" This time, no one argued. We ran back to the clearing and started throwing our gear into the truck. The sun was still high, but the shadows seemed longer than they should have been, stretching toward us like reaching hands. Marcus was loading the last tent when Tyler screamed, "Wispoon, around." Tyler was standing at the edge of the clearing, staring into the forest. His face was white, his eyes wide with terror. "It's there," he whispered. "It's been there the whole time." I looked where he was pointing. Between 2 massive pines, maybe 30 yards away, stood a figure. It was human-old, but wrong too tall, too thin, its limbs bent at angles that shouldn't have been possible. Its skin was gray, like bark, and covered in what looked like carved symbols. But its face was the worst part. It had no features, just smooth, pale skin where eyes and nose and mouth should have been. Yet somehow, I knew it was watching us. I could feel its attention like a physical weight. "Get in the truck," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "Get in the truck now." We ran. Rachel grabbed my hand, and we threw ourselves into the back seat. Marcus studied the engine while Tyler scrambled into the passenger seat, still screaming. The truck lurched forward. I looked back through the rear window. The figure was closer now. It hadn't walked, it had simply appeared at the edge of the clearing, its blank face turned toward us. Then it raised one long, branch-like arm and pointed at me. We drove for what felt like hours, tearing down that dirt road faster than we should have. The trees blurred past us, and slowly, gradually, the forest began to thin. When we finally reached the highway, the sun was setting again. We'd lost an entire day somehow. None of us could explain it. We drove straight home, didn't stop, didn't talk, didn't look back. That was 3 months ago. Tyler hasn't been the same since. He won't go outside after dark. Won't talk about what happened. Marcus moved to Arizona last month. He needed to be somewhere with no forests. Rachel and I are still together, but some nights she wakes up screaming, clawing at the air like she's trying to escape something I can't see. And me. I'm telling you this story because of what I found last week. I was cleaning out my truck when I noticed something carved into the dashboard shallow grooves I'd never seen before. I traced them with my finger, and my heart stopped. It was a name Daniel Mercer 2026. My name with this year's date. The hollow at Millbrook Ridge is waiting for me. I can feel it now. Every night. That same weight pressing down on my chest. That same cold breath against my skin. If you ever find yourself driving north on Route 17, past the last gas station, past where the cell towers stop working, keep driving. Don't stop at Millbrook Ridge. And whatever you do, don't let it learn your name. The first 2 days were everything we'd hoped for. We hiked deep into territory that hadn't seen human footprints in decades, following old logging roads that had been swallowed by undergrowth. The silence was profound, not the empty silence of dead things, but the full silence of a living forest holding its breath. On the 3rd morning, Cole found the first tree. "Marcos, come look at this." I pushed through the ferns to where he stood, his hand pressed against an enormous pine. The bark had been stripped away in a perfect rectangle, about chest height, and into the pale wood beneath, someone had carved numbers on Hustat, a single digit cut deep and clean. "Survey marker, maybe?" I suggested. Cole shook his head. "Survey markers use paint, and they don't carve numbers into living trees." We found the second tree an hour later. Same thing, bark stripped, number carved. Those 10 tres, then 4. By noon, we'd counted 17 trees, all in a rough line heading northeast. The numbers were sequential, never skipping, carved with what must have been incredible patience. Some of the markings were old, the edges softened by years of weather. Others looked fresh, the wood still weeping sap. "Someone's been doing this for a long time," Cole said quietly. "Doing what?" though. He didn't answer. We should have turned back. That's what rational people would have done. But there's something about a mystery in the wilderness that pulls at you. That whispers just a little further until you've gone too far to return before dark. We followed the numbers. 23, 24, 25. The forest changed as we went deeper. The trees grew closer together, their branches interlocking overhead until the afternoon sun became a dim green twilight. The undergrowth thinned and then disappeared entirely, leaving nothing but a carpet of brown needles that muffled our footsteps. And the silence deepened. I realized I hadn't heard a bird in hours. 31, 32, 33. Marcus Cole had stopped walking. His voice was strange. Look at this one. Tree 34 was different. Below the number, carved in the same careful hand, was a name, Ellen Purchase. And below that, a date, 1987. My blood went cold. That's not a survey marker. We found more names after that. David Cole, 1991. The Patterson family, 1994. Unknown male, 2003. Each name corresponded to a number. Each number corresponded to a tree. The highest number we found was 47. The carving was fresh. The sap was still sticky. Miranda Cole, -2026. That's impossible. Cole whispered. That's dated this year, and my ex-wife's name was Miranda. Cole, we need to leave right now. But when we turned around, the forest had changed. The trees we'd passed, through the ones with numbers carved into them, had moved. I know how that sounds. Trees don't move, but they had shifted somehow, closing the gaps between them, forming a wall of ancient wood that hadn't been there before. And between the trunks, in the shadows that shouldn't have been so dark at midday, something was watching us. I couldn't see it clearly. Just shapes. Just the suggestion of something tall and wrong, standing motionless in the gloom. When I tried to focus on it, my eyes slid away like water off stone. Don't look at it, Cole said, his voice barely audible. Don't let it know you see it. What is it? I don't know. But I think he swallowed hard. I think it's been counting. We ran, not back the way we came. That path was blocked but sideways, crashing through undergrowth that tore at our clothes and skin. The silence followed us, that terrible, heavy silence, and underneath it I could hear something else. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, never hurrying, never falling behind, just counting the distance. We ran until the sun set. We ran until we couldn't run anymore, and when we finally collapsed in a hollow between two fallen logs, gasping for breath, I made the mistake of looking back. It was closer now, close enough that I could see it properly. It looked like a tree, 12 feet tall, bark-skinned, with limbs that bent like branches and a face that was nothing but shadows, and the suggestion of carved numbers where eyes should have been. It stood at the edge of the hollow, absolutely still, and I understood then what it was doing. It was waiting, patient as wood, ancient as the forest itself. Cole, I whispered. Cole, get up. We have to. But Cole wasn't moving. He was staring at his hands. In the fading light, I could see something on his skin. Thin lines, like scratches, forming a shape I recognized. 48, it marked me, he said, his voice hollow. Sometime during the run, I didn't even feel it. The thing in the shadows took a step forward. I made it out of the Ridgeback Wilderness 3 days later. Search and rescue found me wandering on a logging road 15 miles from our last known position, dehydrated and half-mad, babbling about trees that walked and numbers that killed. They never found Cole. But last week, I went back. Primera, detonó. I drove as close as I could get to where we'd been, and I hiked in alone, following the numbered trees. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 47. And there, on a massive pine I'd never seen before, was a fresh carving. 48. Cole Harrison 2026. The bark was still weeping. I ran all the way back to my car, and I drove until I hit the highway, and I didn't stop until I was 3 states away. But it doesn't matter. This morning, I woke up with scratches on my arm. Thin lines, barely visible, forming a number I'd been dreading since I escaped those woods. 49, the forest is patient. It's been counting for over a century, carving names into trees like a hunter marking kills. And now it's marked me. I don't know when it will come. Maybe tonight. Maybe next year. But somewhere in the Ridgeback wilderness, there's a tree waiting for my name, and the thing that lives between the shadows is already carving. Water's perfectly still. Not a ripple. Not a breath of wind. The kind of stillness that makes you hold your breath without knowing why. A cabin sits at the edge of the lake, old wood, weathered by decades of harsh winters. Smoke rises from the chimney. Inside, Thomas Webb, 52, sits alone at a table. A bottle of bourbon, a loaded revolver, a photograph. The photograph shows 2 people. Thomas, younger, and a woman with red hair and green eyes that seem to glow even in the faded image. Her name was Claire. She's been dead for 15 years. But last night, Thomas saw her standing at the end of the Darkentank Lake House night. Thomas hasn't slept in 4 days. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees her. Claire, walking through the trees, standing in the doorway, watching him from the darkness. He's a former detective. Toronto homicide, 23 years on the force. He solved over 200 cases. He put away killers, rapists, monsters of every kind, but he couldn't solve the one case that mattered most. Claire's death was ruled a suicide. She walked into the lake on a November evening and never walked out. Her body was found 3 days later, tangled in the reeds near the old fishing pier. Thomas never believed it. Claire was happy. They were happy. They had just celebrated their 10th anniversary. She was planning a garden for the spring. Happy people don't walk into frozen lakes. But the investigation found nothing. No evidence of foul play. No suspects. No motive. Just a woman who decided to stop living. Thomas retired a year later, moved to the cabin, spent his days drinking and his nights staring at the Watt that took his wife. And now, after 15 years of silence, she's come back. Lake House later, Thomas replays the moment in his mind. Again and again, he was sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. And then he saw her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, the way the fading sun painted shadows on the water. But then she turned, looked directly at him. Claire, same red hair, same green eyes, same white dress she was wearing the night she died. She raised her hand, pointed toward the forest. Then she was gone. Thomas ran to the dock. Nothing. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there. He told himself it was the alcohol, the isolation, 15 years of guilt finally cracking his mind. But he hadn't been drinking that night, and his mind, damaged as it was, had never played tricks like this before Eaton Lake. How's morning the phone rings. Thomas lets it ring 7 times before answering. Thomas, it's Anna Webb, his sister-in-law, Claire's younger sister. They haven't spoken in 3 years. Anna, it's 6 in the morning. I know. I'm sorry, but I had to call. I had a dream last night about Claire. Thomas's blood goes cold. What kind of dream? She was standing by a lake. Your lake, I think. She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear her. She kept pointing at the trees. And then she said one word, basement. Thomas looks at the floor. There's a trapdoor in the corner. He's lived here for 15 years and never opened it. The previous owner sealed it shut. Thomas, are you there? I'm here, Anna. I need to tell you something. I saw her. Tuesday, Lake House Day. Anna arrives by noon. She looks older than Thomas remembers. Gray streaking her red hair, lines around her eyes that weren't there before, but she has Claire's face. The same bone structure, the same way of tidying her head when she's thinking you look terrible. she says. Thanks. I'm serious, Thomas. When did you last sleep? I don't remember. They stand on the porch, looking at the lake. Why do you stay here? Anna asks. This place must be torture. It's the last place she was alive. I can't leave. Anna nods, like she understands. Maybe she does. The basement, she says. Have you looked? Not yet. I was waiting for you. Why? Thomas doesn't answer. He's not sure himself. Maybe because he needs a witness. Maybe because he's afraid of what he'll find. Into lake house. Basement. Later, the trapdoor is rusted shut. It takes Thomas 20 minutes with a crowbar to pry it open. The smell hits them immediately. Damp earth. Old wood. Something else underneath. Something chemical. Thomas descends first. Flashlight cutting through the darkness. The basement is larger than expected. It extends beyond the footprint of the house, carved into the rocky shore. The previous owner was Victor Marsh, a retired chemistry professor. Died of a heart attack 2 years before Thomas bought the place. The realtor said he was a quiet man. Kept himself. No family. Thomas's flashlight lands on something in the corner. A desk, covered in papers, notebooks, photographs. Anna gasps. The photographs are of women, docents of STEM, different ages, different faces. All of them smiling at the camera, unaware. And in the center of the collection, circled in red ink, is a photograph of Claire Int. Basement continuous. Thomas's hands shake as he picks up one of the notebooks. Victor Marsh's handwriting. Cramped. Obsessive. Subject 7. Red hair. Green eyes. Approximately 35 to 40 years old. First observed on March 15th, walking along the shore. Beautiful. Perfect. Have been watching for 3 weeks now. She comes to the lake every Tuesday and Thursday. Always alone. Her husband works late. She thinks no one sees her. I've made contact. Introduced myself as a bird. She was polite, but distant. I would need to be more careful. Thomas flips forward. The entries become darker. She rejected me. Said she was happily married. Said I made her uncomfortable. She doesn't understand I'm trying to save her. Her husband doesn't appreciate her. I see how he looks at her. Impatient. Distracted. She deserves someone who truly sees her. I've decided, if I can't have her in this life, I will preserve her memory forever. She will become part of my collection, the most beautiful addition yet. The final entry is dated November 12th. The night Claire dulled, it's done. She fought it first, but the sedative worked quickly. I walked her to the water myself. She looked so peaceful as she slipped beneath the surface. No one will ever know. They'll call it suicides. They always do. Int. Basement. Later, Thomas is on his knees. The notebook crumpled in his fists. 15 years. 15 years, he blamed himself. Thought he'd missed the signs. Thought he'd failed her somehow. And all along, the monster lived next door. Thomas, Anna says softly. There's more. She's found a lockbox behind the desk. Inside, more photographs, more notebooks, more victims. 17 women, spanning 30 years. All of them ruled suicides or accidents. All of them living near lakes where Victor Marsh had owned property. Claire wasn't the first. She wasn't the last. Victor Marsh was a serial killer who hid his crimes behind the mask of tragedy, and no one ever knew. Ixt, dark-eyed Thomas stands where he saw Claire's ghost, staring at the water. Why now? He says. To the darkness, why show me after all these years? The water ripples. For a moment, Thomas thinks he sees something beneath the surface. A face, a hand reaching up. Then nothing. Anna joins him on the dock. I called the provincial police. They're sending investigators tomorrow. They'll exhume the other victims, run new tests. It won't bring them back. No. But it will give their families answers. The same answers you finally have. Thomas thinks about this. 15 years of not knowing. 15 years of wondering if he could have done something different. Now he knows the truth. Claire didn't choose to leave him. She was taken. It doesn't make the grief smaller, but it changes its shape. Gives it edges he can hold into Lake House. Dawn. Thomas sits at the table. The bourbon bottle is still there. The revolver too. He picks up the gun. Ejects the bullets, one by one. He's thought about using it, more times than he can count. Joining Claire in whatever comes next, but Claire didn't give up. She fought. Even drugged, even dying, she fought. And somehow, from wherever she is now, she found a way to reach him, to show him the truth, to expose the man who killed her. Thomas owes her more than surrender. He puts the bullets in a drawer, locks it, ixed. Forest Day, the investigators arrive with dogs and ground-penetrating radar. They search the forest behind Victor Marsh's property. They find 3 more bodies buried in shallow graves. Women who were never reported missing. Women no one thought to look for. Victor Marsh didn't just kill 17 women. He killed at least 20. Maybe more. A monster hiding in plain sight for 3 decades. Thomas watches from a distance as they carry the remains away. Each body bag a story that was almost lost forever. Int. Lake House. NIGHT. Thomas dreams of Claire. She's standing in a field of wildflowers. The garden she never got to plant. She's smiling. "Thank you," she says, "for not giving up. I fooled you. I should have known." Claire shakes her head. "You couldn't have known. No one could. But you found the truth. That's what matters. Will I see you again?" Claire's smile turns sad. "Not for a long time, I hope. You still have work to do." "What work?" "Live, Thomas. That's the work. Live the life we were supposed to have together, even if you have to live I alone." She begins to fade. "Claire, wait. I love you. I always loved you. Remember that?" She's gone. Thomas wakes with tears on his face.